Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Xyzal is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Xyzal keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all, take Xyzal. At night.
Hey everyone, it's Meredith. Welcome back to the Afternoon Snack podcast. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the fitness advice out there, or you're just getting back into training after a long break, this episode is going to be for you. Because today, we're going back to the basics with strength and conditioning training. We're going to cut through the noise and get into the core principles that actually matter. No fluffs, no gimmicks, just a solid foundation to build strength, improve conditioning, and train smarter no matter where you're at in your fitness journey. Maybe you're brand new to the gym, maybe you're returning after some time off, or maybe you just want to make sure that your fundamentals and your education on this are on point. Either way, we've got you covered. So, grab your water, grab a buddy, lace up your shoes, or don't. You can be barefoot if you're driving, 10 and 2, but let's get into it. Alex?
You don't have to say my name.
I like saying your name. I'm just glad to be here. What can I say? I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here as well.
So, we're on day 3 of our 100-day fitness challenge, which when this episode comes out, will be like a week into the actual programming. So, if you're listening to this and you want something to do for the next 80 days or so from a fitness standpoint, from a training standpoint, jump in on ours. You can do some of the testing from week 1 or maybe just skip that and get right into the training because we're, as a community, we're doing this collective 100-day thing, 100-day challenge that isn't really like, it's like the least fitness challenge. Because really, it's just training. It's nothing weird. It's not like you have to do 100 days straight
Of 100 burpees.
Right.
100 push-ups.
Can you imagine? Oh, my shoulders.
Here's the thing is, we don't want you to get to the end of this challenge and think about any movement and say, I'm never doing another one of those again. If I do 100 push-ups for 100 days in a row, I will never do another push-up again.
Yeah, it's just like fast track to burnout.
Yeah.
This is like the way people think about fitness challenges. They're like, I'm going to ride this push-up train until I can't stand the thought of push-ups. And we don't want that. We care about a day 101. And I think if done correctly, and it's kind of what we're going for here, if done correctly, something like a 100-day fitness, let's call it commitment to intelligent training can be the start of a 1,000-day commitment to it. And that's the kind of thing that changes your life.
We're talking 102 labs, 103 golden retrievers.
What?
Not just 101 Dalmatians.
Oh.
We're thinking long term here.
Okay. That was a bit of a stretch. That was editors. I'm the editor. No, but so this challenge, you got to get yourself together.
Okay, you know what? You said 101, and I'm like, there's a joke in there.
Yeah.
And I spent a minute at least thinking about it.
Yeah. Do you remember that conversation we had the other day about when, if a joke doesn't come to you soon enough, when you deliver it, it's like it's a little too desperate. It's a little too late.
What are you saying?
I was wondering if you remember that conversation.
Yeah, I do. So mine was a little too late and a little too desperate.
But I guess that's just your flavor of humor. I think
it is.
Okay, we'll go with that.
It's so far out, and it's that it takes people not only having to make the joke make sense, but also connect it to a conversation that is now past.
And then ask the question, would that have been funny had I heard it immediately?
Still no.
Maybe. Okay. So I designed this 100 days, and I have it built out in phases, and it started with testing and it will end with testing. And it's not I think a mystery that you and I don't participate. Like, we don't do our own programming. We don't do the training that we write, and we never have. We've never advertised it as if we, like, this is what we do and therefore you should do it so you can have what we have, which is honestly, like, that's the way a lot of training is put out there. And we've never done that. But for me personally, like, I'm in this weird spot with my training where I'm still trying to decide what I'm doing next year for bike racing. Strength and conditioning is supportive of that, but it feels very much as like I'm in this sort of in between, not really like an off season, but just like a different season. So I decided, take a pause on the training that I've been doing for like almost 10 years now.
And I'll just interrupting. The training that we do isn't that different than how you program our fitness program. It's very, very similar. The components of each day are similar. The layout is very similar.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't do it is because I do a lot more like high skill work. And because my running volume is so high, my biking volume is so high outside of strength training, that my 3 specific strength training days are just a little bit more carefully balanced. Mm-hmm. If I were to take, just maintenance running, then I could, like your maintenance biking right now. Yeah. You could easily implement this, and it doesn't have to be as, specific. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
As somebody who has an enormous history with strength training.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not working around something like I was in the spring and summertime. So I have a little bit more flexibility. So I decided just to play my own game here, and it's going to be cool. And also just, it's an interesting sort of check and balance on, I think, the programming itself. But I will say it's been a long time since I've done testers like the ones that I've written, like a straight up, like a 1 mile run, 5 minutes of burpees. The lifting is fine. There's a workout today that's going to be really tough. So like, I'm already like, there's this like excitement with it, and this feeling of, even today, I know I'm going to have to do the workout a little bit later in the day than I've been doing it. But there's not this, like before, like last week even, or in the weeks preceding now, if I knew I was going to have to, like, my workout's going to get pushed, like there's a real possibility that I might just not do it, or push it off, or just reduce it to a point where, not that it's not effective, but I've been in a funny place with doing workouts. But with this, I'm like, there's no part of me that doesn't want to do it. There's no part of me that wants to shorten it. It's like, okay, when am I going to get this done? Like, maybe I'll just have to do this at like 6 p.m. when my day's over, and that's fine. And it's like, it's just really interesting to see the mental engagement with it feel so different.
Yeah. I like seeing it. I'm jealous of the workout that you get to do today. I wish I could do it, but I have my race on Saturday.
Yeah.
But what I think is cool for you is you're kind of taking on fitness in the way that a lot of our members are taking it on, which is, testing themselves, checking their fitness, trying to actively progress and commit to something, while different than before, because you're very busy with work right now. And we've got some travel, just like a lot of people that we work with are. It's not like you're taking on a new fitness challenge or a build when you're frankly a full-time athlete or very dedicated to fitness. Like right now, you're just trying to check the boxes and rebuild confidence with it, so that when bike season rolls around, you have a really, really solid strength base, and you fit it into your routine in a really nice way. Like you mentioned, you might have to do the workout later today, but you are trying to rejig your routine a little bit and get workouts done a little bit earlier.
Totally. So yeah, I'm selfishly super excited for the next 100 days. I think it's just going to be really fun. To participate in it, to write it, to tweak it, to feel what's feeling right, to feel what's not feeling right.
Yesterday you said something really funny about being a pro athlete.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I said, cause there's a business advantage to one of the owners doing the training. So I was kind of joking, like, and it'll be easier to produce content. So I said, like, I'm getting paid to work out, so I guess that makes me a professional athlete, which is kind of, because I'm definitely not a professional athlete. I haven't been a professional athlete in a long time. And even when I was a professional athlete, that gets air quotes for sure.
Yeah. And to give credit where credit is due, Lindsay's the one who programs the build and the high rocks.
Yeah.
And so if you are doing build or high rocks, some of the tests overlap because you collaborate, but it's different so that your goals are in alignment with the tests that we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the hypertrophy program has obviously more of a focus on hypertrophy type tests. And then the high rocks program has more of a focus on strength endurance, aerobic, and, that type of testing, which is so funny because like high rocks itself is a test. So you're like testing for a program to do a test. It's a very interesting concept. Mm-hmm. One of the tests that Lindsay wrote for build for high rocks is a 10 rep max barbell hip thrust.
I saw that.
Can you imagine? Those are, what a spectacular lift that is. But it's just like, I hate doing that.
One time I saw Lindsay doing hip thrusts.
Yeah.
And she had more weight on there than
when I do
deadlift.
When I do heavy barbell hip thrusts, I do like, if I have 155 pounds on the bar, that's like a big deal. I'm pretty sure I've seen Lindsay do hip thrusts with like 245. Maybe even more than that. I'm like, what?
I need a pad around the bar, or like I wrap my sweater around the bar if I'm maybe 75 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't do those for weight.
We're like I was like, oh, so we're doing two different exercises here. Okay, I got it.
That's sometimes when I see people do barbell bent over rows.
Oh, yeah.
With like more than 45s on each side. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's because you're too strict with that one. We've had this conversation.
I know. I think I'm also too strict with hip thrusts.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to get more like...
Yeah, there's a limit, of course. We don't want to be... but... okay, so today's episode, we're going to do a series of these, and we're starting, it's called Back to Basics. And so this is going to be the training episode. And when we were talking about this concept of doing this podcast series, this episode series, there's going to be a number of topics that we cover: training, nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, putting the pieces together. So it was obvious, like, which one do we start with? And we decided to start with the training episode because for a lot of people, training and workouts, that's the routine that orients the other routines. Like when people have that piece in place, they're more incentivized to take care of nutrition. They're more incentivized to take care of some lifestyle things. Like it just seems to be the linchpin for like other great health promoting behaviors. Whereas like we know that from a health standpoint, you actually get more out of nutrition and lifestyle than you do training. When you look at like the impact, your training is it's a very small part of your day. Nutrition is something that supports your whole day. So it like makes sense that that's the thing that would have the biggest impact. But nutrition doesn't invite in other habits in the same way that training does. So that's why we decided to start with our training episode and talk a little bit about workouts and how to, if you're a beginner or someone who is just getting back into it, or someone who has a great routine and just wants to like learn a little bit more about these basic concepts. This episode, we're going to walk through some of those things. So you'll have a really good understanding of the building blocks, the foundational things that you can build on while bringing in other supporting behaviors and habits as we go along.
Right. So in case you didn't know who we are, we won't hold it against you, but we bring in a ton of experience in the fitness front. We have decades of experience as athletes ourselves in different sports and different types of training. And then we have about a decade each of experience working as coaches. And yeah, I think we bring a lot. We've dabbled in a lot of different sports at elite levels, but also at beginner levels, and have kind of thrust our way into learning and
You can't just
experiencing.
say thrust like that.
I don't know. I guess my brain is on like the hip thrust conversation that we had.
Yeah.
We have, as heavy as Lindsay does hip thrusts, we have thrusts ourselves into learning and helping people with training. And I think the most exciting part is, even though we do focus also on nutrition, and that was kind of where we started as business owners, we've come to realize how important training is for reasons that you said. But I think outside of what it does for our routines and our mindset, it is so dang empowering, especially working with adult athletes or new to athletics as adults.
Yeah.
It's learning new skills. It's learning new moves. It's learning just that you're capable of lifting weights. It's learning that motion is lotion. I don't know. It's just really awesome to hear and see people doing things that they wouldn't have even thought of doing, and identifying as people that they never have identified with.
Yeah.
I'm an athlete. It's amazing to hear people say that.
And it's funny. I think when we started our company, it started, number one, as a nutrition company, and also as like a performance nutrition company. And so we were sort of, because I think we came out of that space working with athletes and seeking out athletes to work with. And then kind of like pretty early on found more enjoyment and more fulfillment working with people who maybe were not coming from an elite sporting background or not pursuing an elite sporting background. It's people who just wanted to be a little bit healthier with their nutrition. And then in working in that area, you kind of realize, and we realized early on, that it becomes more about lifestyle and these supporting behaviors and habits that sort of bolster up the nutrition side of it. And then with that, it's like, okay, so actually fitness is a huge part of this, because that seems to be this like toggle for a lot of people. So now we're supporting people's like fitness routines. We're talking to them about that. And then, several years later, we launched the fitness company. And then, in the background, the whole time we'd been programming for people. It just wasn't what we were holding ourselves out to do. Like, we were a nutrition company that, did a little fitness programming for people behind the scenes. And then the fitness programming kind of became bigger, and then it became its own company. And then now it's becoming a really big part of what we do. And it's not that fitness is any more important than nutrition. Like I said, it's not. But it's so supportive. It's so empowering. And just helping people become that person, like not an elite athlete, not someone who's ripped or super fit, but a person who like believes that they can do hard things because they commit to a fitness routine in a way that they never have before. Like, that's where I like to be as a company. And I think that's where you feel good as a company. And so that's kind of where we are. And like, it's a big deal, but I changed our Instagram handle recently. And
wow, you're finally going to talk about this.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about it because I was able to grab our old one. So I don't know if there are people out there who give a shit about this, but changing an Instagram handle is like chopping all your hair off. That's what it felt like.
You actually were more riled up about changing the Instagram handle than you were about chopping your hair off.
I know. Because I'm like, we've been at Tactic Nutrition since day one. And I'm like, I'm just going to change it. Like, it felt like this thing I was going to do, and people were immediately going to notice. And then I did it. And basically no one said anything. Like, a few people noticed. But like, when you change an Instagram handle, you have your old one basically goes into the ether for 2 weeks. Like, no one can claim it because you're allowed to change it back for 14 days. But after 14 days-ish, it's sort of like fuzzy when the actual threshold is. After 14 days, it can be claimed by anybody. So I changed it, and then I made a little like calendar event for 2 weeks later. Go get that handle, so that another company or person or whatever can't grab Tactic Nutrition and then, kind of
pretend they're us.
Yeah. Or like,
good luck doing that. I
mean, even if they weren't pretending, anybody who has ever tagged us at Tactic Nutrition, that would come up like a different person's page. Yeah. So anyways, I didn't want to put it out there because I wanted to make sure that I was the one that reclaimed it. And I was. So like made a new account, and now it says, if you're here, it's because you've clicked on our old handle. And anyways, I don't know. Cool story, bro. But
I think it is. I think it sums up where we are, and we're more than nutrition now.
Yeah.
And I love that for us.
It's felt that way for a long time. And so much so that I was like, I would give our handle out to people and be like, but we do more than nutrition. Like I found myself qualifying that Instagram handle for a long time. And now I think it's very reflective of us and where we're at. And it's at Hey Team Tactic.
I think even if we didn't have a fitness company, changing the handle still aligns with what we're doing, even with the nutrition and lifestyle coaching,
100%.
Which is so much more than nutrition and lifestyle coaching. I mean, we have clients who I don't talk to them about nutrition at all.
Yeah.
It's coaching. It's having somebody in your corner, and it doesn't necessarily need to be about food or planning your dinner out or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
It's very encompassing, and I'm super proud of it. So
yeah, me too. Okay. Let's get into the flow of the episode. We're going to talk a little bit about strength and conditioning, some core pillars of strength training, fundamentals of conditioning, building plans, that kind of thing. So, what is strength and conditioning? So strength and conditioning is something that a lot of people have heard. It gets packaged up in a lot of different ways these days. You could call certainly CrossFit is a strength and conditioning program. F45 is a strength and conditioning program. High Rocks is a strength and conditioning program if someone's programming with that kind of in mind. So really, it's any program that in some way prioritizes strength training and some version of conditioning. And those are so broad that it's actually silly to say that. So, and like on a very high level, strength training is training that builds muscular strength and size. And within strength training, there are sort of a few different concepts. There's like straight up strength building, and then there's hypertrophy. And a lot of people, we did a whole episode on hypertrophy training and what it is. What hypertrophy training is increasing the muscle cell size. So if you didn't know, you don't build new muscle tissue. You don't produce muscle cells. You have on your body right now as many muscle cells as you will ever have. Like you're born with that potential. So strength training and hypertrophy training, it's about training those cells and muscles to be a certain way and respond a certain way to stimulus. So hypertrophy is training that makes them bigger. And then in theory, a bigger muscle cell with like more cross-sectional area is able to produce more force. So hypertrophy is a part of strength training always, but you can certainly train a more specific hypertrophy style program in addition to a strength training program. So if you were to look at, hypertrophy is commonly used in like the bodybuilding space because it can really change the way a muscle looks. Strength training doesn't always change the way a muscle looks. I mean, it will to a degree, but you're not going to see the same size development that you'll see with like a dedicated hypertrophy program. And with that in mind, a lot of times you'll see people who look like they should be really strong if they're on a hypertrophy program, but their numbers aren't actually all that high from like a raw strength standpoint. And then you might see people who do a ton of strength training who don't look super big, but are like very strong.
Like think about in the Olympics, if you watch Olympic lifting.
Right.
You're like, but how?
Yeah.
And then you watch bodybuilders, try to squat, and their squat is, a percentage of what an Olympic lifter could do.
Yeah. And you also have to remember that those are very extreme examples of that style of training. And most people are in the middle. Mm-hmm. So you don't actually need to worry about that too much. Conditioning, we can define that as the development of cardiovascular endurance, mitochondrial efficiency, energy system development, things that will support sort of long enduring efforts, but then also potentially short and high intensity efforts. So you can put, kind of middle distance track would fall into there. Sprinting to a degree, although like sprinting 100 meters, sort of, you're looking more at like strength and power development in addition to running mechanics. I don't necessarily think that's like a cardiovascular modality. It's more about like metabolic.
If it was, then I would actually be good at it.
Yeah. Do you think I could beat you in 100 meter? Yeah.
I remember racing Emily Abbott, who was a good CrossFit athlete. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole story with her, but she was a good athlete, and she throttled me.
Yeah.
And it broke my brain for a second until I realized that I just don't have the power.
Yeah.
There's a reason why she can also basically lift everything more than me.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that. Do you remember quick side story.
Okay.
Do you remember when we were at the Granite Games and there was a sprint and everyone's like, oh, you guys are good at running, you and Alex. And we just, got throttled.
I was like,
we just don't have the power and we're too small.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think size has anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But...
I'm also a little offended that you're using the word we, but I can sprint a little bit better than you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We're racing after this.
Here we go. I knew that was coming. So they complement each other. And a lot of people don't realize this. So strength training tends to benefit conditioning, especially from like a balance and muscle recruitment standpoint. So this is something that like runners are starting to turn on to, is that some amount of strength training makes you a better runner. Obviously, if you're training for performance and running, too much strength training can have a negative impact, but it certainly isn't like, as soon as you touch a barbell, you're going to get slower. That's not the case. In fact, you'll get faster. You will be less prone to injury. There's a lot of things that are really beneficial for endurance athletes with strength training. And then conditioning, also very supportive of strength training. Again, there's a limit. You can't go run 10 miles and then expect to PR your back squat. Like that's not going to happen.
It's a continuum. There's strength training on one side, conditioning on the other. Most people are in the middle.
Yeah. And we've also recorded an episode on concurrent training, hybrid training.
Hybrid athlete.
Yeah. And kind of how that works. And it's nothing revolutionary. People have been using concurrent training for literal decades. And, it always comes down to what's the priority in season for this person. And that type of training gets the priority when you're approaching your race or your event or whatever. Outside of that, you can sort of mix them up and make progress in both for most people. Do you have anything else you want to add there?
No, that's great. So
let's talk about strength training, and maybe I'll talk about strength training, and then Alex, you can talk about conditioning since you have a bit more experience with the running side of things, and I have a bit more experience with strength. So the core pillars of strength training. So there are some specific movement patterns that you see pop up in every single strength training program ever. They are like the foundational movements. So there's the squat. So think like sitting down in a chair is sort of the functional squat, sitting down on a toilet, squatting down to pick something up off the ground. There's the hinge. So that's going to be our deadlift kind of movement. So again, think picking something up off the ground, maybe picking up a bag of dog food, picking up your kids. That's going to be the functional application of something like a deadlift. A push. So something as simple as a push-up, all the way up to something like a bench press or a strict overhead press is going to be our push. So that's going to be that movement pattern. And again, we're thinking like pushing a door open. If you are on the ground for some reason and you need to push yourself up, that's going to be the functional application of a pushing movement. Pull. So this can be barbell row. It can be a pull-up. It could be something even like a kettlebell swing is going to kind of count as a pull. And, the functional side of that would be, opening a car door, pulling on a rope, pulling anything in towards your body. That's going to be our functional application of the pull. And then carry. So an example here would be farmer's walk or like a sandbag carry, odd object carry, something like that, where you're moving heavy load over a distance while having to brace and control your midline and your back. So that's really like a full body thing. But, the most obvious one would be like carrying many bags of groceries to your car without putting them down or having to take multiple trips. So that's going to be our functional application of the carry. So strength training, when you're looking at the compound lifts, which are, those are the compound lifts, they are extremely functional. Accessory lifting that supports those movements, where you're looking at more isolated muscle groups, maybe unilateral movements. Those are less functional, but they still have a purpose in supporting those compound lifts. But the compound lifts, the squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, the movements where you're using, your whole body, those should be the like sort of the core movements in the strength training program. And this is a thing where a lot of people get this wrong, and a lot of women are sold programs that are like built around accessory lifting. So you actually don't see any of these compound movements, but you see a lot of accessory lifting. You see a lot of single arm stuff. You see a lot of dumbbell stuff. You see a lot of things that I would program at the end of a workout, programmed like at the beginning of the workout. And then you're looking at it and you're like, well, where's the rest of it?
I don't know how many times I've had, and usually it is a woman, be checking all of the boxes with their nutrition and seeing very little progress with physical change. And you ask, well, what does your strength training program look like? Please send me a sample. And it is that. It's just a lot of accessory.
Yeah.
Nothing that's really going to make any great changes to your overall strength or muscle size.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, again, talk about the origin story of our fitness programming. A lot of it came from like, we need to fill some gaps here for people who are already bought into us as coaches and expertise. Like we're sending them out to different companies, but we can take this on because like we have a lot of knowledge in this area. So that's where we sort of began with our fitness programming was, with people in that exact situation. So let's talk about kind of what, some important factors, like not the movements. So I would say an important hallmark of any great strength program is progressive overload. And this is something that you will hear repeated over and over and over again, but it's not clear what that means. So all progressive overload is developing the ability to lift more weight or more volume at the same weight over a period of time. So let's say, for a very basic example would be if someone 1 week does a set of squats and they do 10 squats at one weight. And then maybe the next week they do 8 squats, but at a slightly heavier weight. And then the next week they do 6 squats at a slightly heavier weight than the 8. And then the next week they do 4 squats at a slightly heavier weight than the 6. And then the next week they do 10 squats again, but they do that at a heavier weight than the 10 squats that they did 4 weeks prior. And then they repeat that cycle over and over and over again, increasing the weight for each respective week for each training block. That's 4 weeks long. So it goes 10, 8, 6, 4, and then go back to 10, 8, 6, 4, but heavier, 10, 8, 6, 4, heavier, 10, 8, 6, 4, heavier. And you can repeat something like that until it stops working. And then when it stops working, you're like, okay, well, how do I introduce different volume, different movements, like tempo, like what's becoming the limiting factor here? But I'm telling you, like people overcomplicate this. I have seen 12-week linear strength development, like strength progressions work for people essentially indefinitely. So it's like, the first week is 2 sets of 10. Second week is 3 sets of 8. Third week, 3 sets of 8. Fourth week, 2 sets of 8. Fifth week, 3 sets of 5. Like you do that. And as long as you're just bumping up the weight incrementally, you get to that final week, heavy set of 3 or 1 rep max, start all the way over. And now working on maybe based on a percent of your max or just RPE. You can do that just indefinitely.
Yeah, I will say, if somebody's sitting here saying, okay, that sounds so simple. It is. I think the one thing that needs to be kept in mind for someone who's tried this and either had success or has had sticking points is, it's similar to running, and I'll talk about that, but there are going to be periods of time. Let's say you repeat for 6 months, whether the cycle is 12 weeks long or 8 weeks long or 5 weeks long. There are going to be cycles where you don't feel as good. Mm-hmm. There are going to be days where maybe you lift for 6, the same as what you did for 8, and it feels just as heavy. There are going to be days like that because we all live in this world where we have so many external stressors. Mm-hmm. Sleep is a factor. Food is a factor. There's so many different factors. But I think as long as you're consistent at trying to get the intended stimulus over time, you'll see progression. You might not see a huge jump in your 1RM 6 weeks from the time you started the cycle.
Well, you will if you're brand new.
Oh, if you're brand new. But if you're not brand new, whether you're a moderately experienced athlete, then that's okay. It doesn't mean that you haven't made progress. You just kind of have to keep at it for longer.
Yeah.
And if you're a very experienced athlete, then, sometimes hitting the same 1 rep max 12 weeks out is a win.
Especially if you're hitting the same 1 rep max 12 weeks out, while doing more biking or running or
just more volume strength training.
Yeah. Like you have days, like it's to show up, 1 week and hit maybe even lower weight for like a set of 6 than what you hit the week prior for a set of 8. Like what matters is that you show up the next week and you have, maybe a good week and you're like, oh, that's just how that goes, I guess. And that is exactly how it goes.
And I remember you saying something a while back, many, many years. I think I was frustrated at not being able to hit a weight or a percentage that I thought that I could for that lift or rep scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something along the lines is your body doesn't know the weight.
Yeah.
It knows what it feels like to lift that weight. And if it feels heavier on a day and you don't lift as much, you're still getting good training.
Yeah.
Your body is still adapting to a heavy weight for it on that day.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the trick with, being such smart animals is that we know numbers. Our brains know what numbers are. Our brains know what percentages are. But our bodies don't. And so if you're working off percentage or even just with a knowledge of what previous weeks have been, there's that friction, there's that conflict that shows up if you're just tired or you can't do it one day. But there's still, like you said, you're still creating a huge stimulus that you're going to adapt to. And that it only becomes a problem if you're like week after week after week after week, not progressing, not able to hit numbers that you ought to be hitting, because that can indicate under recovery to some degree based on a number of factors. And then you would want to kind of go back to the drawing board. But that's not going to be the case for most people. If you're just starting, beginner gains are so fun. Like you can make so much progress early on. You develop all this strength, and a lot of it is neurological. Like your body's literally just turning cells on that have been turned off. And so you have so much like neuromuscular adaptation that occurs early on, which is super rewarding. But just be aware that it's finite. Like that, the rate at which you make progress at the beginning is not the rate at which you will make progress like indefinitely across strength training. So just super fun, doesn't last forever. Enjoy it while you have it. Cause I don't know, I go years.
Then you start going in reverse.
I go years without PRs in the gym. I remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I finally bench pressed 200 pounds, which is kind of nutty cause, I'm definitely not training as much as I used to, but I've been chasing that 200 pound number for like literally 8 years and I finally got it. And then yesterday I won at max my bench at 170. So welcome.
But here's the thing, having hit 200 not that long ago, you probably could get back to 200.
Yeah.
Partially because in your brain you can do it because you've done it, but partially because you have that experience. Like your body knows it.
Yeah. It can do it.
Yeah.
Their capacity is there. Mm-hmm. With all of this said, like not everyone can hop into the gym and just start like piling on weights. So there is a technique to lifting safely. There's form involved, and we want to make sure that people are prioritizing mechanics over intensity. But even like if someone's very beginner, just working on form and mechanics, you're going to make progress. We're going to make progress with strength, focusing on those things and not piling on the weights. It has to be said because we don't want anyone to get hurt. So, rest and recovery matter. You want to take rest days off. Obviously, that's actually where you make progress is, not necessarily rest days, but sleeping well, which we'll talk about later. But taking, the occasional day off from the gym, even, if you're like, I don't want to sit at home, just go for a walk or something. Like you don't have to be a potato, but you can't be hammering weights every single day. Otherwise you will run into that situation where you're just like not able to adapt and recover and keep progressing.
Let's talk quickly about DOMs.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're a beginner or you're starting back from strength training, maybe you used to be a college athlete and you're like, yeah, I used to lift weights all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you get back into it, if you start this 100-day challenge and you haven't been strength training over the summer, which like no judgment, summer's for doing fun stuff, not being in the gym, you're going to get sore.
Yeah.
Delayed onset muscle soreness.
Yeah.
It is a result of you tearing your muscle.
Little baby micro tears.
And if you can actually look, I remember the first time I saw it was in a textbook because I'm old, but you can look online and see what that looks like from a microscopic level. It's quite interesting. And the interesting thing, and I've discovered this in my history with athletics, DOMs don't actually impact your ability to perform at your full strength capacity.
Yeah.
So if you have really, really sore legs from doing lunges the day before, you can show up the next day and do squats and you should be able to hit your max numbers for squats or your percentages.
Very close to
even
it.
though you're sore.
Mm-hmm.
The kicker here, and this is what I'll say about beginners, if the soreness and the DOMs are to the degree that it's preventing your brain from allowing you to move through ranges of motion or like want to even lift weight, that's when you should probably just take a day off or go lighter because you don't want to get injured.
Yeah.
Even though, you can say, yeah, DOMs don't impact your strength or like capacity for the day. They can in a way.
They can impact your ability to safely achieve range of motion.
Yes.
Which is both like physical and like your brain has many protective measures against getting hurt, and it will literally just like not let you do things.
Yeah.
If
and
it's
you
like,
don't want to be compensating and doing all that. Just like give it a couple days and then ease back into it. And people always ask like, how do I make DOMs go away? In my experience, there's nothing except time.
Yeah. And as long as your training is not like ridiculous, like if you're doing crazy shit every single week and it's not progressive and it's random and it's a lot of like random volume with random movements, you're going to deal with DOMs 100% of the time because you're not going to be able to adapt. There's no progression there. But if you're sore after your first week of squats or lunges because you just started doing them, the best way to get over that or to reduce DOMs is to do them again next week, which is exactly how intelligent programming is written. So you're gonna deal with DOMs during the period of novelty when your programming changes or you're getting back into it. And then as long as you keep doing it, you're not going to deal with DOMs to that degree anymore. Like they're going to be transient. You're going to feel sore, but not like incapacitated. And I think that's a lot of people think soreness and that like DOMs feeling is like proxy for an effective workout. And it's not. Like you're going to deal with it sometimes, but if you're looking for that level of soreness or anything that's even close to it as a sign that you've had a good workout, it just means that you've never actually had a good workout. Or at least not a good program, because you don't know what it feels like to move through that period and then actually just get into a routine with training where you don't have that going on 100% of the time.
Yeah, like the non-sciencey way to say this, which is how I say everything, is to think about those muscle tears. If you're constantly just tearing, that's not getting you stronger because you get stronger, you build muscle, you build strength by the repair of that tear.
Yeah. Exactly.
So if you're always sore, you're not really ever, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And if it's something that you do the warm up for the day and the soreness doesn't go away, that's kind of like you said, maybe take the day or just work really light that day. Like still move your body. That's one of the best things you can do to make it feel a little better. But it is something that you can often get warmed up and it's like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. If it is still bad after the warm up, that's usually a sign that you've overcooked the potato, and that may not be your fault. So don't take that personally. You may need a day.
Just text Meredith and say, I hate you.
I hate you. Who programs burpees 2 days in a row?
Although,
I do.
Burpees don't really give you DOMs. I feel like squats are the biggest culprit.
Yeah. I mean, my deltoids will be sore tomorrow from the burpees probably, but also the bench press is going to do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's move into fundamentals of conditioning.
Okay, so I would say the two different ways to think about conditioning is, and you have written down here lists, low intensity steady state. I like to think about it as LSD, long slow distance. That's like old school. But we're talking about longer periods of sustained effort, easy efforts. Easy is relative, of course, because you're not going to feel like you're sitting on a couch. Running is hard. If we're talking about running, which maybe we will stick with running today, running is inherently hard, especially if you're new. So easy running doesn't mean easy sitting on a couch. It means like easy within the relative of running. And then there's high intensity interval training, which is shorter, more higher elevated heart rate and breathing rate. So the benefits for both low intensity, the feel should be that you should have a conversation. So I have a lot of people in Run Club that are running their easy runs too hard. And I think the biggest way to figure out if you're truly running easy is to run with a friend and try to hold a conversation. Or even, and this is going to sound ridiculous, say a sentence out loud while you're running. And if you can't get out more than 7 or 10 words, then without gasping for air, then you're probably running a little bit too hard. So that's a good metric. I always use like maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
0 being on the couch or just walking. 6 or 7 is something that most people can sustain for quite a while.
Yeah.
That's cardiovascular. We're not really going to talk too much about the impact of running, the literal impact of running on pavement or trail. You might be conditioned. You could be conditioned for running a long time or keeping your heart rate at 140 for 2 hours. But if you haven't been running, then the first thing that's going to fall apart is your legs or your hip flexors or your knees or something like that. So you could take a really great biker and make them run a half marathon and they're not going to have a good time, even though they're very cardiovascularly fit.
Are you talking about me?
Maybe. I think you'd actually have a good time. You just wouldn't have a good time after the race.
No, my hip
Been there,
flexors would
done
be, torched.
So the purpose of this is you build an aerobic base and endurance. You improve running style, technique, and efficiency, and you develop fatigue-resistant muscles. So you build the musculature needed for the type of cardiovascular sport that you're doing.
Yeah.
And this is for running or for biking too, or for rowing or whatever it may be. So the benefits, you increase, well, for some, mobility and balance. For some of us, we decrease mobility. You reduce fatigue, you improve cardiorespiratory fitness, and then you lower injury due to less strain on joints. I think you also can build, if we're talking about health things, you can build bone density.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably one of the bigger ones with running.
It's kind of funny. You often hear running has a negative impact on bone density, but this is one of those things like someone's coming off the couch, running's going to have a positive impact on bone density.
Yeah.
Because you're moving, you're loading, there's impact. There's obviously a point at which a high volume of running can become a negative thing, especially if someone's not incorporating strength training also. But any movement is healthy off the couch. And then you're also building like mitochondrial density with long, slow distance too, which is just makes you more efficient metabolically like in every zone, not just like zone 2, if we want to call it that, not just easy, but it makes you more metabolically efficient in your moderate zones, in your high intensity zones. It builds that base of, metabolic efficiency that you need to develop as an athlete. And you can't really do that without the easy work.
Yeah. I'll say, I think running is the superior fitness. And I say that from personal experience. I came into CrossFit with a huge running base, and that helped me recover within like CrossFit movements, because if you have that very superior ability to recover, you can lift your sub maximal weights. So let's say your power clean max is 200. I could easily lift 175 over and over and over and over because I'm so cardiovascularly fit. I'm able to, pump the blood, recirculate, keep my heart rate low, recover in between reps, recover over time. Whereas somebody who's very, very strong, they can lift 250. And this was my whole CrossFit career.
Yeah.
They can power clean 250. Maybe that's extreme. Let's say 230, which is significantly higher than 200. But at repeat 175s, their heart rate is way higher than mine, and they're struggling to lift, even though it's a lower percentage of their max weight.
Yeah. They're dealing with the accumulation of metabolic waste products. They're not using lactate efficiently. So they're basically they're going to experience shutdown despite having like a much higher capacity for weightlifting than someone like you, they're just going to get stuck. They're going to get stopped in their track because at some point with that type of training where you're lifting high load under high heart rate, it becomes a metabolic activity. And so, I mean, it's something like running may not seem supportive of something like 175 pound squat clean repeats, but it very much is at a certain point.
Yeah. So there's definitely, even if you want to build strength or be a better athlete, there's there's a place for cardio fitness and this long, slow distance. And people say, oh, what about the 80-20 rule? And I think that still applies. I'm not really sure what people are saying now, but I think it depends on how much you want to run. I think if you're only running twice a week, 80-20 would be kind of hard to manage. You could figure out the base and the ratio there. But I think for people who are doing high volume, I think 80-20 is pretty accurate.
Yep.
The long, slow distance by itself, while helpful, isn't what is going to get you to be a faster runner. You hit a cap. Yeah. I think for beginners, it's really hard to create different paces and intensities because running by itself is already so hard. So in order to, there's going to be a period of time where you're doing all easy runs, but maybe the amount of walking you're doing in between those easy stints becomes less and less. And then you can run for longer and keep your heart rate manageable. To touch quickly on the zone 2 cardio, people are really caught up in zones right now. I like going by RPE because for, especially again, a beginner runner or even someone like me, it's really hard to keep your heart rate in what it would be zone 2. Yeah. And a lot of us don't even don't even know what our zone 2 is. We're going off of our Garmin's or we're not getting actual testing done. So it's hard to say. I would say if you're running in a state where you can speak, you're probably in zone 2, lower zone 3, and that's okay. The goal here is that you feel like you can sustain the effort cardiovascularly for longer than the duration that you set out to run.
Yeah. And I really like the use of common language here especially for monostructural, because it removes these advanced concepts or makes them sort of irrelevant for the person, because it's like, is this sustainable? Yes or no? You don't need to worry about your heart rate. You don't need to worry about anything other than how this feels. And you can actually take that up to lactate threshold, because they've done research on the talk test and basically looking at, even like elite athletes, and they're doing lactate testing while they're running, and they're testing how, can this athlete, speak, and to what degree can they speak? So obviously if someone's in a very easy zone, quote unquote, if something's sustainable, they can speak multiple sentences. They can have a conversation. And then they increase the effort and they say, okay, so how's the sentence now? Can speak a sentence, but starting to become broken, can speak several words, can only speak one word. And this is all happening as the intensity and as the speed goes up. And eventually they get to a point where they cannot speak a word. There's no talking. This person can't talk anymore. And do you want to know what that specific timestamp correlates directly to? And I'm talking about a freaky level of statistical significance across athletes. Do you know when a person can no longer speak, do you know what that number is? Lactate threshold. Almost on the nose for every single athlete tested. So if you take that knowledge, you can work backwards from that for an athlete and kind of guess, okay, so I don't know, we can't test your blood lactate because you're at your house, but you can see kind of what that pace is. You can see kind of what that heart rate is. So if you can back calculate, zones if you want to, or you can say that's actually not important because we know that these other zones that are apparently important also correlate directly to talk test. And zone 2, easy effort, is full sentences, no problem. But you look at someone who's off the couch who has no running experience, that point of full sentence and can't talk at all, so close together. And so you have to there's not a lot of room and not a lot of difference between pace between comfortable and very uncomfortable. In fact, the pace might be the same, and it's a matter of time spent moving, running. And so the way that you bring the intensity down for someone like that isn't just run slower, because eventually that's going to be don't run, walk, or stop running.
Yeah.
And so that's when someone's very beginner, you don't need to be worrying about zone 2 or zone 3 or zone 4 because you can't consistently get in those zones in a way that's relevant at all. And so you're just building the base of running enough so that maybe one day you can start to like parse out paces and get an idea. But you certainly can't do that off the couch.
Yeah. I mean, you look at an elite runner and you say, okay, run, let's just 10 kilometers, walk 1 minute in between each kilometer at a moderate pace. So let's say 6:30 per mile. That for an elite runner, that would be very moderate.
Yeah.
That person, that last kilometer of the 10K is going to feel almost the same as the first kilometer, maybe better because you're more warmed up.
Yep.
If you take somebody who's off the couch or has only been running for a couple of months and you have them do 10 sets of 2 minutes, run easy, 1 minute walk, they're going to get into that higher intensity zone at set 10, at 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
So you're already getting that like 20 or 30% at higher intensity by programming in a very similar way that you would for somebody who's more elite.
Yeah.
So someone who's more elite that has a broader range of paces would need to hit that higher intensity range by increasing sometimes not even the duration, just the speed and the effort, and maybe hills are involved or like a lot more volume. It's definitely harder to program for elite athletes than for beginners, even though, I mean, both are difficult in a way. But yeah, it's just a completely different ball game depending on the person's conditioning level.
But you can't say you can run 10K, you just need to run slower, because that actually may not be true.
There is no slower.
Yeah. There is not.
Yeah.
There's stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think personalized programming for running is important. That's why I do it. But there are also couch to 5K programs that can be really good too.
Yeah.
So the high intensity running, I love high intensity running. I used to hate it. I used to never do it, but my running has significantly improved by doing it. And like Meredith said, you should only be able to speak, if at all, a few words at a time. So someone says, how are you feeling? It's kind of like fine or not good. Those are going to be your answers. If someone were to say, so how's work going? You'd probably give them the middle finger.
Yeah.
And tell them to, F off. They're, way too fit for you to be run, So the purpose of higher intensity running, enhance anaerobic capacity. So that's the shorter efforts, higher heart rate, train the body to recover quickly between intense efforts, build power and speed. So sometimes you'll have people say, and I've done this with biking because I'm newer to biking. Oh, well, I did my 1 minute really hard at 300 watts, but I was able to hold my 1 minute easy at 150 watts. And my coach actually told me this, and I should know better. Why don't you just spin easy for the easy so that you can get the 1 minute at higher intensity to like 350 watts? You get more from that rather than, again, running everything at the same pace, essentially.
Yeah.
So usually you're either resting or walking in between intervals to really try to get that recovery. And the more fit that you are, the faster you're going to recover and the longer you can recover. So you can do more intervals and bringing your heart rate back down almost to where it started.
Yeah, there's not really any benefit to being able to actively rest, because that's not a real thing. Like there's rest, there's not moving, and there's moving. There's no rest. There's no active rest that is a better form of rest than rest.
Yeah. I mean, there are workouts where being able to recover while working is helpful. And that skill is built by both doing very low intensity, but also very, very high intensity.
Yeah.
And that's just for variety in training.
Yeah.
So like I'll have workouts and I'll program workouts where you're hitting high intensity 5K paces and you're recovering at easy pace, but the intention of the workout is not to tap into that anaerobic fitness.
Yeah.
You're still in that aerobic fitness base and you're building confidence that you can recover while moving. For example, if you're a trail runner, like that's basically trail running. Yeah. You're constantly trying to recover while putting out effort.
But you can see it becomes very athlete and sport specific at that point.
So you're also building power and speed. The benefits: improves blood flow. This one we'll talk about fat loss. It can boost fat loss. Mm-hmm. I think people think fat loss comes from like low intensity cardio. Maybe that's old school thinking. I think it can we can get into that. I don't know.
I mean, you're looking at any higher intensity effort, and this also includes strength training. This isn't just running or cardiovascular efforts. Anything where you are extremely glycolytic, bordering on anaerobic, you're going to have a higher post-exercise oxygen consumption. And so that's going to increase fat burning. And then when you combine that with calorie deficit, yeah, you can see fat loss. But I don't think like I struggle with the fat loss thing as a goal for conditioning and for training. Because like, yeah, sure, we want to be careful correlating those two. And then also
fat burning and fat loss.
Two different
Not
things.
the same thing.
Yeah. So I think it's more important to look at your training based on your performance and training goals and less on like how effective is this going to be for fat loss, because that has more to do with the kitchen.
Yeah. And honestly, you're probably better off just walking more.
Yeah.
If you want to lose fat.
Yeah. Increase your NEAT.
Okay. So this, like Meredith said, it can accelerate metabolism or increase post-exercise oxygen consumption. And then it can also have a bigger impact than long, slow distance on building and strengthening muscles.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. I would say there's like, it needs to be progressive, just like strength training, because you can't do too much too fast, especially road running. Maybe biking can get away with a little bit more because there's no impact, but always progressive. And one thing I'll say real quick, what I see a lot with runners and people who want to get better at running, whether it's in a marathon distance or 10K, there's these like cyclical seasons. It's almost like that cyclical like fat loss season, like, oh, spring's coming, summer's coming, I want to lose fat now. And then, winter, you kind of like put on weight because you're not as worried about what you look like in a bathing suit. And that can be kind of the way that people treat running. Oh, well, I don't really run in the winter. I'm going to focus on strength training. And then in the spring, I'm going to build to another marathon. Like there's a reason why your marathon's not getting faster, because you can't like not run for several months and then expect to just kind of pick back up where you left off. Whereas I don't necessarily think you need an off season, but there's times where you should just be in maintenance.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of rebuild from there rather than these big slumps and peaks of running.
And you could see how it could go the total opposite. If someone was more focused on strength training, but they're like, I like to run in the summer, so I run. But I think it depends very much on the goals and the person. And I think that goes back to that misconception that you can't do both strength training and cardiovascular training at the same time. Like it has to be fully periodized and you have to pick one or the other. But the reality is that you don't. And I think for athletes who are very elite in what they do, off season for sure is worth taking. And that's both like a physical and a mental break. But it's not like no one's sitting on the couch for 3 months. No one's like full, like if someone's a runner, they're not full off running for 3 months. Like they're still doing it to some degree. They're just doing less of it, or they're doing less intense running, or they're doing lower volume or something like that.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong. If you're someone who's just like, I like moving, I like doing what I like to do, I like moving with the seasons, it's fine if you don't run during the winter. But if you're somebody who wants to improve over the course of 5 or 10 years in the marathon, you kind of need to be running full year.
Yeah, exactly. And then same thing, if you're someone who's trying to get stronger year after year, you probably need to be strength training in the summertime, year round. But, check in with what you're doing and why you're doing it. Let's talk about how all of this can fit together in like a simple kind of a layout or a plan. So I think to go back to our fitness challenge, a big focus there is on logging both the benchmarks and data as we go along. So keeping track of what you're doing. I think a lot of people train and they don't keep track of what they're doing. And that's like probably the biggest miss. I think if you can measure something, you can improve on that. So I think always track your progress, always. From an actual programming standpoint, if someone is off the couch, don't jump into 7 days or 6 days a week of training, because that's going to be so hard. It's always worth like start with what you're doing and build up to where you want to go. So let's assume that someone has built up. I think an ideal layout is probably 2 to 3 strength workouts per week and 2 to 3 conditioning sessions per week. And the conditioning sessions don't have to be targeted if you're just after health. Like getting your heart rate up for 30 minutes a couple times a week is really, really beneficial. And then moving compound lifts like through a range of motion 2 to 3 times a week. So the layout could be one lower body leg day, which if you do Tactic Fitness, that's going to be our Monday. One upper body pressing day, pressing/pulling day. So bench press, strict press, things like that, along with maybe pull-ups or kettlebell swings or some sort of like pulling. And then one pulling from the ground, deadlifting day with pull-ups, supporting lifts there. So you're touching on squat, push, pull, like pick heavy things up every single week. And then if you want to add in some running 2 days a week or biking 2 days a week, that's how you would do that. And then if you want to progress the biking or the running, then you would look into maybe having one day be kind of long and low intensity, and the other day being maybe some intervals, like higher intensity with lots of rest. And you can do those 2 days for a long time, make them longer, make them harder, add complexity, add volume, intensity on the lifts, do it until it stops working, and then figure out how to add in volume and intensity and novelty as needed to continue to make progress. But like the most important thing that anyone can do is focus not on like, I need to have the perfect program or I need to know exactly what I'm doing. Focus on consistency over complexity. Like something doesn't need to be complicated to work. In fact, like the more simple something is, the more likely it is to work because it's so much easier to do. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be looking at movement demo videos because you're seeing new shit every single day. Like you want to be doing kind of the same thing week after week, slightly different variations, different rep schemes, but like, minimal novelty over time tends to work.
Yeah. One quick note, because I get this question. If you're somebody who wants to do double days, maybe you have a lot of goals, maybe you're training for triathlon, the best practice is to separate your sessions by as many hours as possible. Which session to do first, it depends on your priority. If your priority is triathlon, do the run, the bike, or the swim first and do the strength training second. If you're training for Unbound 200, do the bike first and then do the lift. Unless you're someone that you know that the bike's not going to be impacted by the lift. If you can leave, as extreme as it sounds, like 8 to 12 hours in between sessions, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, doing back to back, like going for a run and then doing strength, not recommended, and vice versa. You're not going to get anything out of that second session, maybe once in a while, but that's not the best way to go about doing things.
Yeah.
And if you do, I would start out like very small by incorporating it all. But if you have a good strength and conditioning session, you probably don't need to be doing doubles.
No. Yeah. If you're not doing doubles now, don't make that the...
Yeah. I mean, there's no glory in doubles.
No.
Unless you have a big fitness goal, like an actual fitness goal, you don't need to be doing doubles for health or aesthetics or performance.
In fact, doing doubles may have the opposite effect on all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the next episode in this series, we'll dive into the nutrition that supports this kind of training and just like lifestyle and health generally. Like, what does the nutrition look like baseline? What does nutrition look like in training? What does nutrition look like in long endurance work? And then how do you put those pieces together as like a busy human being, and some hacks? And I hate that I use the word hack. Some tips for that. Because people are busy. You have lives, you have kids, you have jobs, you have other things besides this training. And there is a way to put the pieces together with nutrition that supports all of that, which is really cool. If you like this episode and you're new to us, you can find us on Instagram at Hey Team Tactic. You can sign up for our program if you're like, these folks know what they're talking about. You can sign up for our programming at tacticworksout.com. Our nutrition coaching can be found at tacticmethod.com. And you can find me, Meredith_root on Instagram. You can find Alex at AAParker1. We appreciate you for listening, and please share this with a friend if you think that they might benefit from hearing it as well. And we look forward to catching you on the next episode.